This is what happens when you allow yourself to passively float along the tide of culture. You look up one day and notice that you've drifted far from where you've started, even though you haven't tried to go anywhere at all. Now, I wish I could take credit for this quote. It actually came from an episode of The Matt Walsh Show, but its truth should be evident, and even more so, its applicability to the American culture today. We, meaning the Republican Party, a so-called conservative one, as a national unit have decided that the need for a gay pride coalition is a thing at the highest levels. Roe v. Wade has been a cultural force since 1973, and upon its current, 60 million innocent souls have been slaughtered. 60 million innocent babies have been sacrificed, a proverbial river of blood that stains this country red. Any attempts to limit its power or reach to save human lives is met by a screech and a shrill unheard of in any other arena, carried on the wings of the lie that the creation of life is a detriment to those in our society who have wombs, or, women as they're normally called. This particularly evil lie, this particularly evil sin that stains our great nation is solely based on the rejection and banishment of God from our daily lives. We are made in the image of God, a pale reflection of his glory. Yet in his wisdom, he gave us a spark of his power, an after image of a spark, in reality, that is of creation. The creation of a new member of our species, a whole other being made in the likeness of the God of the universe. And the fact that the charge for elimination of this spark is led by women is the saddest blaspheme of all. Because this is one of the things that makes women so incredibly special. They get to be the purveyors of the spark. They're the ones who get the honor of taking the product of this spark and nurturing it, first within their bodies and then from their bodies as this human life grows. A mother's role in the development of her child's life from conception until she sends that child into the world is unlike anything a father can do. Now, a father is essential as well. I'm certainly not passing the buck. And a child deprived of either their father's masculinity or their mother's femininity during their formative years is a shame. But it is a mother who teaches her child how to love. And as we know, the greatest of these is love. But humans are fallen, and unfortunately, a child's life is not safe even after birth. Now, if a parent is abusive, truly abusive, we as a society have decided that we can take a child from their parents. This is a power we should not use flippantly and is honestly a longer discussion for a different time, but it does give me a segue into what I want to talk about, which is pushing transgenderism on a 4-year-old being child abuse. Yes, we have a video. Yes, it is disgusting. While making this episode, I had to watch it many times, and you better believe I had a trash can beside me just in case I needed it. The despicableness of pushing the lie that anything other than your DNA can determine your biological sex, or that your gender can be opposite to that sex, and yes, we are using binary language, your 57 made-up genders have no power here. It's not only, despicable, but as we've discussed here before, it is dangerous to the mind. Because truth and reality are inextricably linked, and pushing your subjective truth forces you to try to live in a reality or outside of reality. You create a situation where someone has to fully immerse themselves into the lie. And newsflash, a 41% attempted suicide rate proves that doesn't work very well. And to push that on your child is a moral corruption of the highest order, and as such, child abuse. Lastly, and to round out the show, we talk about the heroes of the Rittenhouse trial. No, we're not talking about the defendant here. There are 18,000 different sources of information you can go to if you want it. I certainly do not want to be the 18,000th and first. It does not interest me and not what I want to talk about. What I do want to talk about is the jury in this trial, and I'm pretty sure it's in a way you haven't heard before. We have a great show planned for you tonight, and I'm glad to be back with you guys after last week. Welcome to the world of the canceled Misfits. Marcus, you said you had something to say?
I do. I just wanted to say that I'll take a moment of the show to say today is somebody's very special's birthday. Today is Gray's birthday. and he's a very special man. He not only puts this show together, he works diligently to find all the great stories and puts together a great game plan for the show, week in and week out. And knowing him in my life has been a great joy and a great pleasure. And I'm glad that y'all are here to help support this great man, and hope that y'all
Oh,
keep
let's not
supporting him.
go too far. Let's not go too far. I have a long way to go before I'm a great man.
It's too late. I already went there.
Well, thank you. That really, really means a lot. I had no idea what he was going to say, by the way. I certainly didn't write that out for him. So thank you, Marcus. It really means a lot to me. If you want to keep going, you can. I'm just nah. All right.
Okay, now, let me read what Dre has.
Yeah, here we go. Now, moving on to our first story. Thank you again, Marcus. Moving on to our first story. The RNC, the Republican National Committee, announces Pride Coalition partnership with log cabin Republicans ahead of the midterms. So just reading from this article, the Republican National Committee announced its first ever RNC Pride Coalition over the weekend, partnering with the log cabin Republicans to invest and mobilize LGBTQ communities ahead of the 2022 midterm elections. The announcement came during the Log Cabin Republicans' Spirit of Lincoln Gala, which took place Saturday night, this is about 2 weeks ago, at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, and attracted a high-profile group of attendees, including former President Trump and former First Lady Melania Trump, who was the event's guest of honor, and other prominent Republicans, including former Acting Director of National Intelligence Rick Grinnell. And if I'm not mistaken, he was the first openly gay head of the, or first openly gay Director of National Intelligence. RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel, who was given the Majority Maker Award, said that RNC is committed to working with the Log Cabin Republicans, the country's largest Republican organization dedicated to representing LGBTQ conservatives and allies, calling the organization a partner to fight for our country's future. The RNC is launching our first ever RNC Pride Coalition, she continued, adding that the RNC Pride will work alongside our other coalition groups to invest in communities and mobilize support for the upcoming midterms. Okay, that was a mouthful. Let's deconstruct this, because I want to be very clear what we are for and against in this. So for starters, honestly, the right is the tolerant side. You see, cancel culture has run amok. And the right truly is the tolerant side. We don't just throw you out because you believe something different from us. And while it used to be that if you were gay, lesbian, whatever, you were shunned from conservative circles, it now has become mundane to talk about the fact that there are LBG in the party. I do not count the transgender movement because that is so unholy conservative that we don't even need to even attempt to put them within our ranks. Sorry, but it is what it is. We'll talk about that later. Before I go on, now that I've kind of set the stage, do you have anything to say about this, Marcus?
I think this kind of goes against what conservatives have been for a while.
Can you speak up just a little bit, buddy?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this kind of goes against what we kind of believe as conservatives as far as the LGBTQ bullcrap. But on that same token, how are you gonna get anybody from the left who supports that to realize, hey, we're not that bad, okay? You know, we're understanding people. You know, we're an understanding group. How are you gonna win over votes if you don't accept this? But at the same time, why do you accept something that it's a hard ground to play? Because on one note, we haven't the conservatives, we haven't believed in it. So why should we change our views for votes? But on the same token,
well,
what do you do?
For starters, anytime that the right tries to be like, oh, we'll give the left a little bit of this, it never really works out well. But honestly, so again, I'm going to reiterate my position. I don't care that they're gay, lesbian, or bi people who vote Republican. I think that's boring. It's been that way for years and years. What I do have a problem is starting a gay pride movement within the Republican Party. It is the wrong answer to the left's identity politics. It's the wrong answer to inclusiveness. as conservatism is and should be an ideology where we defend personal freedoms if we do not, even if we do not agree with them, but by proclaiming that we are expressing pride as a strategy, that is a slope that leads to the worst in identity politics. Yes, I am making a slippery slope argument, but I think if you look at the history of the past 20 years, I don't think it's a illogical one. So identity politics, it keeps us from being Americans by dividing us along these arbitrary lines. It keeps us from having a single goal of making America better for everyone. And it instead becomes a game of what can we do to make it better for this group of people? What can we do to make it better for this group of people? And if that takes away from this group of people, how are we going to handle that? And I think that takes away from what we should be doing as a political party and as a conservative movement. Because it does become a zero-sum game that nobody can win. And that is true for much of politics in general. The debate should be what's best for the American people, not what's best for this group, this intersectional group versus that one. And I mean, do you agree with me that we already have enough divisiveness among the American people? We don't need it this clearly coming from both sides of the aisle, or am I way off base?
No, I think we have way too much separation in this country, honestly. And I believe that even just saying, talking about all the division, and I'm tired of the division. You know, it should just be us as a people.
It is very tiring, and it weakens us. You think China? We're talking about this. China just launched a hypersonic reentry system that's designed to avoid our missile defense. Like, how do we compete if we're worried about this versus they're worried about that?
What I hate is the left who claims to be so compassionate for everybody, against racism, against feminism. They use that as a power. You know, I don't care, you know, that you're what gender you are, what race you are. Just we're Americans, you know. So
right, and that's how it should be with the conservative party. Unless you're so far down one extremism that we just cannot, you know, endorse your views even tacitly.
I think for the most part that is what our party is, but of course you've got people that are so far down the rabbit hole it's not even funny. But I think for the most part, conservatives are more accepting than you believe. Now there's stuff we don't budge on, such as transgenders, but
we shouldn't budge on them for sure, because that is a ideology that kills 41% of its adherents. It
used to be a mental illness, legit, and I believe it still is in a sense. So I think now it's either a mental illness or you're trying to join a movement to be popular or to fit in at this point. But it used to be a mental illness, and I believe that if you're not doing it to fit in, it's a legit mental illness.
I agree. Yeah, it's definitely not something that this country needs, in my opinion.
It's a dangerous trend, very dangerous.
Mm-hmm. All right, that was a fairly short segment. I didn't expect that one to go long. Now we do have a long one here. It is about abortion, but it's not exactly the same thing that we've always talked about. So this is from an October 20th piece from author Kathleen Walsh. I don't expect you to know who that is. I didn't. Who wrote it for The Cut. And I'm going to post the entire article to the canceled Misfits Facebook page after the show, because it was just so long we had to cut it down for size, and I tried to do it in a way that kept intact the syntax of the arguments and the context that they were making them in. So you can go if you want afterwards and check it out. Make sure I did my due diligence on that. But I'm not gonna lie, this article blew me away. I wanted to be angry that this woman tried to tell her own mom that she wasn't, that the daughter wasn't worth it in the womb, and then follow it up with the fact that her human life has value now, that somehow the basically the vaginal canal is an arbitrary point that bestows worth on a human life. But as I kept reading it, I couldn't it didn't make me angry so much. It just made me sad. I mean, I was angry the fact that people do this, but it made me very sad. So you didn't read any of this beforehand, did you? So this would be a live reaction for you, right?
Yeah, I've been working 7 days a week for a while, so
yeah, Marcus
I got off
says I'm a great
today,
man. He's the
so.
one who works hard day in and day out to put food on y'all's table.
And clothes.
And clothes and all that. So I'm just gonna start kind of. Got one of the introductory paragraphs to the article just to kind of frame it. This is from the author. From the time I was old enough to know the story of my own conception, my mom made it clear that I owe my life to the moment she went to the doctor, learned what the fetus could do at that stage, and declared me an official baby, as if she wasn't an official baby before. So she decided against an abortion, and they got married. She dropped out of college. She'd been a journalism major at Colorado State and moved across the country to live on the Michigan State University campus in East Lansing with my dad and me while he finished school and worked part-time at a fast food restaurant to support all three of us. By the way, if anybody ever gets mad that a legislator makes a law that before a woman can get abortion, she has to have an ultrasound, this is why. I'm sorry that you have to look your baby in the face before you kill him or her. Sorry it makes you feel bad afterwards, but, you know, even this small concession can in abortion laws across the country can save lives, obviously. Going on, she hates it when I say this, but I often wonder if her life would have been better if she had gotten the abortion. It's hard to communicate to her that at the time her life mattered more than the embryo that would become me, and now that my life matters more than that same embryo did. Circular reasoning. Arguing with my mom about abortion rights is like walking through a Scooby-Doo mystery house of emotional booby traps, one tripwire or trip bookcase, and I'm trapped in a secret room going in circles explaining why I'm still glad I was born. And this is why I get mad more than sad more than mad. This girl is so confused. But here's the big sentence here. It's hard to communicate to her that at that time her life mattered more than the embryo that would become me, and that now my life mattered more than that same embryo's did. This is the reason it's hard to communicate this concept. It's completely arbitrary. We will touch on it more later, but the big two questions are this. Why is life valued differently at different points in your life? And is there a point where your sentient self would say, I'm not as valuable as any suffering person, that if they could prosper by killing me, should they? Or would I let them? This suffering is important because generally if you're going to kill your child in the womb, it's because it's an inconvenience to you, which involves some sort of suffering. Would you agree with me?
I'm still dumbfounded by that statement about that I wasn't important as an embryo.
But now you are.
But now I am. And then my thing would be, at what point did she become important? Was it when she was born? Was it when she was in high school? Was it when she was in college? Was it when she? What point?
What point
does she become important enough?
And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna give away the answer to this. I am right here and right now, and I'll say it later, I think, but I'm going to give away the answer right now. The only point that your life can start mattering and be intellectually honest is at the moment of conception. That is the only point that intellectually honestly you can look at it and say, this is when life had intrinsic value. It's the moment of conception. Anything after that, anything before that doesn't make sense. And if you argue for that, then anytime anyone procreates, there's millions and millions of sperm cells that die off, and you're now a mass genocidal maniac if that's what you ascribe to. And any point after that gives you an arbitrary line that means nothing, so therefore nothing means anything, if you get what I mean.
Oh. Yeah,
this one's going to be a tough one, dude.
It will be. And another thing is she talked about how her mother would have been better off with an abortion, and it's because of the financial situation at the time. Um, there are plenty of poor families in America and the rest of the world. You look at third world countries. Well, if that's your logic, then why is there even anybody being born in third world countries? Why are they not just all killing their babies? They're all being born in places that is very unsafe for children as far as germs and safety and everything, and they're being born in a poor culture. So why why should any of their lives even matter? Why should they be born? Just because they're poor, does that mean that they shouldn't have a baby, or just because they don't have the best ability to raise a child due to money or living? Does that why should they have their baby? It's not good for them.
Mm-hmm.
If that's your logic.
Making that argument is like saying material worth defines your intrinsic value as a human, which is a particularly cynical way of looking at human life. That's for sure. I know Jeff Bezos' life doesn't have more intrinsic value than mine does. Now, does he
Yeah,
add more to the?
but
Does he add more to the, to the economy? Yes. Does that, and he gets rewarded for that. I mean, he's been to space, but that doesn't mean that he has a right to live where I have a right where I don't. I mean, that's the line of logic she's using, though. Let's be
no
real.
offense to no offense to Jeff Bezos or anything, but he has no more of a right to have a child than I have to
Exactly.
have a child. And it doesn't matter how much more money he has or how much more power he has. That shouldn't change the ability for somebody to have a child. Um, and and some of the greatest parents I know who have made wonderful, loving kids and adults
Mm-hmm.
have just been poor, medium class families,
Mm-hmm.
and it has nothing to do with the money you have, but instead the love you have.
Exactly. So, continuing on, this girl asks why her mom is pro-life, and she says, only as so leading up to this next chunk that I put in here, the girl asked why her mom is pro-life. She says she is only after 12 weeks, and of course I asked why 12 weeks. Again, it's that arbitrary line that we talked about, so I'm not going to go back into it, but you get the point. Okay, so mom, just looking at the pictures of the fetuses at that age, like it's a baby. For me, at 8 weeks, it looks like a baby. At 6 weeks, when you have eyes and ears and toes and a mouth, that's a child. They can sense taste. They can taste before 24 weeks. They move, like you feel them at like 16 weeks. And I dare you to tell any pregnant woman who wants her baby at 16 weeks that it's not a baby yet. Pretty sure you'll get an ugly response. And so her editor slash paper slash she put in different notes for clarification throughout this, and I have a couple of them because they really do not work in their favor. So she puts a note for clarification. Limbs and extremities are not fully formed until the end of the third month or at 13 weeks. Taste buds activate at 30 weeks. Fetal movement becomes more coordinated around 14 weeks, but is generally not strong enough to be felt until around 20 weeks or 18 weeks after conception. So taking the fact that she is 13 weeks as when extremities are fully formed, that's like 3 months. That's 13 weeks. That is not a win for the pro kill your baby choice that she thinks it is here. Anyway, continuing. It's still kind of a baby, whether you want it or not, doesn't change what it is. It's not an it. It's not a blob of cells. It's skin and heart and organ and things developing. So I have some notes here. Do you want to say anything before I get into them?
Now you're gonna get into them.
All right. So guess what? Guess what? Humans have different developmental stages of their life. But I'm also going to assert here that if one of those stages is moving from a zygote to a blob of cells and then to a more human form, and form as in shape, as they develop, it doesn't change the fact that they are 100% human this whole time and have the DNA to prove it. They have the DNA to prove it. They're alive. They are human beings from the point of conception. So after this, they move through a discussion. Maybe I'm a little mad about this, but I'm also sad. Just putting that in. So after they move through a discussion of late-term abortions, just moving on through the article, they go into late-term abortions and how her mom felt so much different being pregnant. expect that if you have not been pregnant, you cannot understand, which led to this from the daughter and her mom's response. So, Kathleen, it doesn't matter though, because if it's in my body, it's still a part of me. It's still something that is just mine because it's in my body. And so I am the only one who gets to decide whatever is going in there is worth. No. It only matters in terms of what the person who is pregnant thinks about it or feels about it, because before then it's not a person, it's a theoretical person. Also, no. Then the mom says, okay, well, I think it is a person. It's not a theoretical person. There's nothing theoretical about it. This is flesh and blood. It is actually there. It's not imaginary. This mom, she's not 100% right on all her things, but she does make some really good points. And then Kathleen goes, no, it's imaginary. It's a physical being, and it's a theoretical life. It's a maybe, what might be, and it doesn't matter as much as the actual life. Again, I have notes here, Marcus, so if you want to comment in, now's your chance.
Well, number one,
actually, I need to get some water too. So,
but actually, it's not just her inside of her body. It takes two people to make a baby, which means that even if that was her argument, it's inside of me, it's mine. It takes two people's DNA, so there's at least somebody else's DNA in there. But once the conception starts, there's the DNAs combined. So now it's a mixture of two people's DNAs. It's its own DNA. It's its own makeup. Human. So
I get you. We are actually coming to this because she uses the what is it? The famous violinist problem. We're getting to that in a minute. So my thing is, it's a maybe, it's a what might be. As her mom argues, it's an actual is. It matters as much about the actual life because it is an actual life. There's nothing theoretical about it. As long as there's no miscarriage or stabbing the baby with a fork a la abortion, it's going to pop out as a human, wholly separate from the mother. But here's the thing, that doesn't happen during the movement through the vaginal canal. The intrinsic value doesn't happen there. It's a separate human from the point of conception. I told you I would tell you this again later, but that's it. That is the line. It is separate human from the point of conception. When the DNA from the egg and the sperm merge to create a 3 billion long base pair chain of DNA that has never existed before and never will exist again. So doing the math, of all the different combinations of base pairs and how long it is, there's 70 trillion different combinations of DNA that can be made. 70 trillion. We will never see that many in this world. We're not. There are 70 trillion different combinations, and the one inside you as a mother is separate from your own. Okay. Anything before I go on? I need to calm down. I need to breathe a little bit.
The whole what if or it may be, that whole argument, it gets me because it's not like, you reach into your fridge blindfolded, I might grab the milk or I might grab the orange juice, if if you've got a baby inside of you, it's going to come out. There's no if, ands, ors, or buts. Yes, there's unfortunate things such as miscarriages and stuff like that, but that's also no different than somebody dying in real life. People passed away, whether it's young, old, still in the womb. But there's no question as to theoretical, it may be a child.
Mm-hmm.
It is a child, and it will come out of a woman, as long as there's no miscarriage
the mother's
or
not
abortion.
Killed or that, right? Actually, that's a funny thing. Go ahead.
It's not like it's this baby may come out of me. Oh, maybe I'm gonna have a child. No, if you're pregnant, the baby's not staying there forever.
It's coming out of you as long as nothing happens.
It's not like someone walks around. It's not like you walk around pregnant for years. Like, oh, when are you gonna pop the baby out? Oh, I just like having it in me. I just like walking around and I like the attention. No, it doesn't matter if you like it. It doesn't matter if you don't like it. It's gonna pop out one way or another. So I mean, it's not like you can choose when to have it, how long to have it, yada yada yada. It has its destiny to come out unless you do something about it.
You are 100% right. There's a point you made well, sort of. I'm going to use something imagine something you said to make my point. It's that, if nothing happens to the mother, and I love the legal, like, double standard where abortion is legal, but because it's not a, real baby until after birth. But yet if I were to go find a pregnant mother and shoot her in the gut and they both died, it would be a double homicide. So, that doesn't make
Oh,
sense, but
that gets me. That gets me
yeah,
so much.
it doesn't make any
I
sense, but
despise that.
what about this does?
But
All right,
better yet,
so
what if that woman is on the way to an abortion? You kill her on the way to her abortion, and you get charged with double homicide. Well, it was about to be dead anyways.
yeah, I wonder if you could use that as a legal defense.
No,
I don't want to know. I don't want any case law on this. I'm just curious. Okay, moving on because we still have a lot of this to go. The mother, so Kathleen said, no, it's not imaginary. It's a physical being, but it's a theoretical life and maybe a what might be, and it doesn't matter as much as the actual life. Again, that makes absolutely no sense. The mother says it is an actual life. You're still pumping blood. Your heart is beating. Sounds like a life to me. And then she puts in another note here, says, per Dr. Nisha Verma, an OBGYN speaking to NPR, the fetal heartbeat detected at 6 weeks gestation is a grouping of cells that are initiating some electrical activity. It's in no way detecting a functional cardiovascular system or a functional heart. And how cruel do you have to be playing semantics with the baby's life? You're playing semantics with the baby's life. That's all it is.
You can use those same.
That's all it is. You are playing semantics to make yourself feel better about taking a baby's life.
Well, I mean, you can use that same argument about COVID patients that barely have any lung function, and they're on respirators and they're fighting for their life. And
Should we
it's
stick
like,
a
oh,
fork
well,
in their head?
I mean, their lungs aren't going to be working. They can't breathe on their own. If it wasn't for this ventilator, they'd be dead. Oh, let's just shoot them in the head. Let's just shoot them. Put them out of misery. We don't use that same method for adults. What happens whenever somebody has Alzheimer's and they remember nothing? Their brain's almost nothing
They're
because
walking
they
vegetables.
forgot it all.
I hate to say it. My granddad
why not get rid of them?
So I can say that.
But I mean, it's just like what stops that from other aspects of life? What stops you from doing that with COVID patients? What about people that get in car accidents that are on the verge of death? They get life flighted. Why not just say the time and they're almost dead anyways? Why not just put them out of misery? Why make them go through other stuff and they're almost dead? They can't hardly breathe. They're barely got a heartbeat. Why try all that stuff? They're almost dead there anyways.
It's intrinsically valuable. All right, moving on. Kathleen then utters this truly heartbreaking line, where she says, "I exist because you chose for me to exist. You decided that you wanted me." And that first sentence, the "I exist because you chose for me to exist," is where you should focus. The assumption here is that aborted babies are not wanted by their human mothers, and because their human mothers don't want them, the baby doesn't have the value to exist, which is a very bleak view on human existence and also very, very wrong. But that is the logical, if you take that to a logical, its logical endpoint, that is what she's saying. So I try not to only have a religious and Christian answer. I'm about to go into the weeds a little bit, Marcus, so if you want to sit back and relax, I'm about to go into the weeds for a second. But it has value. So I try not to only have a religious and Christian answer for things that I talk about on here. And so I'll try to have some sort of answer for this based on some sort of secularism as well. But, and that's not because I don't think that the Bible alone is good enough to have faith. It's just because I believe having the Bible plus good sound reasoning is even more powerful. But explaining why this is bad through only secular means is actually impossible. So the final destination of secularism is nihilism. Which is the belief that nothing matters. It's only a logical endpoint. If there is no God of any sort, there is no meaning to all of this, and therefore killing your baby isn't bad. The closest argument I could think of, and I certainly don't believe in it, is evolution, where the current generation only exists to produce the next generation, which would mean abortion would be bad. But even then, why does it matter? Because the human race is not going to go on indefinitely. There's nothing happens. There's still the heat death of the universe, and humans aren't going to exist past that point. It doesn't matter. So yeah, the reason it is bad is because the inherent we have at being made in God's own image. Coincidentally, that includes Jesus at conception and just a blob of cells. So when she says it's just a blob of cells at the first few weeks of gestation, well, if we believe that Jesus lived life as a human, he started as a zygote, became a blob of cells that formed into a baby within the womb and grew within the womb and went through all these same stages. And so we were still in the image of God. Boom. Anyways, off of that tangent. And also the mom had a really good response. Do you have anything to say about that before I go on, Marcus?
Technically, we're still a blob of cells, but we're a bunch of blobs of cells.
That is true. In its broadest definition, we are a blob of cells. All right, off
I
of that
mean,
tangent.
every part of us.
So the mom had a pretty good response to that, by the way. She said, before I decided you existed, you still existed. If I ended that existence, I would have ended it, but I would have ended an existence. And she is absolutely right. Of course, Kathleen's response is also heartbreaking. She says, but it wasn't me. And her mom, of course, is also right when she says, of course it was you. Every part of you, every cell was there. Every part of you was there. And then Kathleen starts to deflect by saying every cell wasn't there. But that's not a very good response either. Because at 5 years old, I was not the 6'5", 212-pound person I am now, and I had significantly less cells. Also, and I say this because I know what she's getting at, my brain wasn't fully developed at 5 years old. My skeletal system had much more cartilage. I was much less different than I am. I was much different than I am to today. But I still had intrinsic human value then, and I had it in the womb too, and I'll have it when I'm 70 and probably going out of my mind dealing with people like this. Oh. You got anything to that?
Well, if that's her viewpoint, then that's a viewpoint you want to go off of. At what point does it begin to not be you? You know, at what point is it fully developed? What point is it set? You know, like you said, at 5, you're not the same person you are now. You're not fully developed.
Absolutely not.
You know,
but you still don't have any less intrinsic value.
What does that mean? That you can have a toddler and they're crying and they fuss a lot and you're just tired of dealing with them. So I mean, well, they're not fully developed yet.
Yeah, just chuck them out the window off of your 5-story balcony. No, we can't do that. But that's honestly the same argument as she's making here. If you boil it down, it's the same exact argument.
You can't use the same arguments because that don't work against liberals.
No, of course not. Facts don't work. Anyway. So moving on, we get this line after the daughter asks why the mom should care about anyone else's pregnancy. And her mom goes, why do I care about anyone else, period? Why do you care about any human beings in this world if you don't know them? Why should I care? I don't know them, therefore they shouldn't exist to me. And I think this one's self-explanatory because we've been talking about the fact that humans have intrinsic value. Oh, okay. And that leads to this question from the daughter, which says, okay, if I got pregnant right now and I wanted to get an abortion, whose life do you value more? So I know the whole point of this article. I'm not missing it. But why does it have to be an either-or situation? Why does it have to be an either-or situation? Why can't the mother's life matter and the baby's life matter equally, simultaneously? The answer is, of course, for leftists that babies and pregnancies can get in the way of life and girl power, and we can't be stopped, and why are you trying to control my body? But, and also for you liberal men out there who push this just so that you don't have to have accountability for your actions, I'm looking at you too with this. I'm looking at you judgmentally for this. But this is why I agree that the feminist movement is one of the worst things in history to happen, because there's 60 million babies dead and counting. So, yeah, there you go. You agree with me, Marcus, or do you disagree that the feminist movement?
No, I mean, to some extent, I get, this world used to be messed up. Used to the white man had the power. If you weren't a white man, then, your life wasn't as important, for being honest. But the world's changed. And I think, honestly, if you're a feminist now, you shouldn't be focused on on the things they're focused on. Um, you look at the petty things they're focused on, like the wage gap. They're focused. Oh, the wage gap. Number one, the wage gap isn't real. They work less hours. Look at the statistics, and it's just proved. But that doesn't matter. But if you really are a feminist, then you should be going to the third world countries where women are mistreated, and you
Yeah.
should be going to somewhere like Iraq and Iran
Go to
and in the
Afghanistan
Middle
right
East
now.
where
See about and uncover your hair. See how long you live there.
over there. If a woman upsets a man, he can just say, he can just kind of like it was in the old days. Oh, not necessarily. Oh, she's a witch and you kill her, but he can make a claim against her that's completely false,
And
and
they'll stone
they
her.
kill her.
Yeah, they kill her.
So I mean, if you really are a feminist movement, then why aren't you focused on the more important things? Even if there was a wage gap of however many cent it is to a dollar, is that really as important to somebody that gets beat in the Middle East or somebody that has literally no rights in the Middle East? No, I don't think it is. So I think in order to get women the right to vote and get them to be equal to man, I get that. That's a good movement. I get that. I love it. But now that there's nothing stopping a woman from making the same, if not more, than a man, there's no legal
As long as
thing
and
that
I'm cutting you short because we're going to go a long episode anyway, and I don't mean to do this, but I think I can sum up what you're saying. Is that they should be legal under the law, which which women have been for like the past how long now?
I don't. It's
But yeah, so women should be equal under the law, and in America they are. Um,
Now,
so
if they can find us something where it's not, I help fight with you. If it's wrong, it's wrong.
but killing
But
60 million babies, I'm not on board for. Not on board for it. I will fight you.
no,
Okay, so moving on. Kathleen says this. I'm not saying that people don't exist. I'm saying that if a person is pregnant and they don't want to be, whatever is growing inside them, the fetus, they get to decide. They get to decide what it's worth because it's not a person yet. It is a person. The person who is pregnant, that whole person, they have a real life. They're alive. They're out in the world. They're impacting things. They have thoughts and feelings and are a whole person. If something only exists in my body, if something hasn't finished cooking yet, if it needs me to survive, it doesn't matter. Okay, few things. One, the baby is a whole person as well. Separate, completely separate. I'm not going over that again. DNA. Two, they are out in the world. They exist. And just because they are in the womb doesn't mean that their existence isn't a part of this world, even if you don't tell anybody about them. Three, if
really
something
quick.
hasn't finished cooking yet, that's still food in the oven. What are you going to do? Take it out and throw it into the trash? That defeats all the purpose of having it in there to begin with. Lastly, if it doesn't matter if it needs you to survive, tell me. If the baby is right out of the womb, does it not need your breast milk? Does it not need its diaper change? This is a long list and the things that it's dependent upon you for. Food, shelter, water, cleaning. They can't do these things themselves. You're still attached to them. Okay. Anything real quickly?
Yes, real quick. She said, you read that. She said that. What if I didn't want it in my body? Well, you should know going into sexual intercourse that a possible outcome is pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of sex is not to feel good. The reason that sex is out there is for procreation. That's
Well,
why
it also, I disagree with you that real quickly because, like, between married couples, where it should be, it also bonds them together, brings them closer together, and all that. But I get what you're saying.
But you should know going into sex that there's a chance that you get pregnant.
Absolutely.
And if you are not ready to have a baby, and you're not ready to take that risk, then either A, don't be doing it, or B, take every measure you can to stop it. So you need to know your responsibility. It's like, I know driving a car that I may get in a wreck and I may die, but you know what? I still get on that car and I still drive to work and I still drive wherever I need to go. So you should know the consequences of your actions. So if you're going to have sex, you may very well have a baby. End of story.
So you're 100% right. I want to move on because she makes an argument here that I absolutely hate, and I'll explain why in a second. So she says, so, okay, I have a metaphor for you. This is Kathleen, the daughter. If I, in order to survive, need constant blood transfusions, and there's one person in the world who can give me these blood transfusions, is that person required to give them to me? And she says, no, it's not my metaphor. I can't remember where I found it. So I hate this argument. That's called the famous violinist argument. I can't remember the name of the philosopher who came up with it. But it's basically saying if a famous violinist got extremely hurt and had to be hooked up to you for an IV for 9 months, do you not get to pull the IV out? Okay, so I hate this argument with a passion. First of all, let's get this landmine out of the way. By an NIH study, 5% of abortions come from rape. That's from a 1996 study that the National Institute of Health put out. That is at the tail end of a crime wave, so it stands to reason that that number is lower now than it was in 1996. So, we'll set aside that conjecture, though, and say that leaves 95% of abortions coming from a sexual relationship that had two willing participants. So, yes, you are stuck together with your baby. You may not be stuck. It might not be morally wrong to pull that IV out if it's someone you don't know. There's cases to be made, but it's certainly morally corrupt to do it if it's your own child. It's by the consequences of your own reaction, and the mother's response is brilliant. As she says, they're not inside of you, they're not a part of you. You didn't make them. You didn't make them. You didn't make the problem, as it were. It's like when you were a baby, you are responsible. When you have a baby, you are responsible. If someone just needs blood transfusions, that doesn't make you responsible. If you put the baby inside of you, you are responsible. Whatever your choice, you are responsible. Ugh. Okay, we got it. She's responsible. So my train of thought just went poof out of my head. You have anything to say to that while I recollect my thoughts?
Yeah, I think that as far as that argument goes, as far as the baby goes, you had to make that baby. You knew what you were doing. You knew it was a chance, but you didn't make that violinist. That didn't form in your body. You might not even know that violinist ever.
Mm-hmm.
But a baby, you knew what you're doing whenever you started.
Absolutely, 100%. So the
So
daughter has. Go ahead. You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So the daughter has no comeback. She actually said F that and pivots to the fact that sometimes there are accidents, which, yeah, there are, but there are still consequences of your decisions. And now, which brings us to one thing, Marcus, I'm going to need you to keep your mouth shut here because only one of us needs to step on this landmine, okay? My face is on camera, so I'll be the one to do it. That brings up rape. All I'm going to say is that rape is a terrible thing. No one should have to go through it. And a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this. But even if that's where the baby came from, that is still a living being, living human inside of you. I'm not saying that I'm not very conscious of what happened to bring that, but at the same time, that is a baby inside of you. All right. And that is the end of it for that segment. That one was a long one. That was a good one, Marcus. I think that's the best one we've done yet together.
I think it was a good one.
I think
it could really.
So, like I said, I'm going to post this entire, the link to this entire article on the Cancel Misfits Facebook page. Be careful when you go on; you only get one free article from this place before you have to buy in. I would not recommend it because one of the other top links from that site are the sex parties are really great right about now, or something stupid like that. So maybe don't support them. So moving on to the Kyle Rittenhouse case, and I tell you, we're going to go a little long on this one, but that's okay because it's been 2 weeks and we have a lot to talk about. So in case you have been living under a rock and don't know about the Kyle Rittenhouse case, the bare bones about it is that this was a 17-year-old kid who went from where his mom lived in Illinois to where his dad lived in Kenosha, Wisconsin, while there were BLM riots happening. He had an AR-15 with him and was working with a group of people to defend private property. People started chasing him. He shot and killed 2 of them, one while they were reaching for the weapon, one while he was beating them over the head with a skateboard, and then injured a third person who was raising a pistol to shoot him. That all came out clear as day during the trial. If you want to know more about it, like I said, there are 18,000 different places you can learn about it, 18,000 different opinions on it. You can make your own judgments about what happened or why it happened, because it's pretty obvious from the evidence that there was more than enough reasonable doubt to say he was acting in self-defense. So plenty has been said about this case, and I'm not here to go over the same things. I'm not here to talk about his guilt or innocence. It's been talked to death. What is interesting about this case is the outside pressure put on the jury. So I'm just going to say this out now. That jury was made of heroes, and let me explain. Our entire justice system, and Marcus, if you want to sit back and relax for a minute, I got a whole thing here. So, our entire justice system is based on the fact that you are innocent until proven guilty, and that to do that, a fair and unbiased jury is extremely important to preserving our court system. It's what they are based on, a judgment of the jury of your peers. You can look up a supercut on YouTube of all the times different media outlets called him a white supremacist, a murderer, and all the other forms of blasphemous names and descriptions for the past year, assuming his guilt and doing their best to prejudice the public against Mr. Rittenhouse. How they found a group of 18 jurors, 12 of which actually brought down the final verdict that was supposedly not pre-prejudiced for or against Rittenhouse is beyond me. I don't know how they found 12 people living under a rock. But then an even harder feat must be accomplished. They must stay unprejudiced throughout the trial, only letting the facts as presented by the prosecution and defense inform their position. This is basic civics, as we learn. Now I'm not sure. Sorry. Now I'm sure you're wondering why I'm talking about this. Sometimes juries can't escape the outside pressure and cave to the winds instead of the law. That didn't happen in the Rittenhouse case, but it very well could have. This did happen in a very famous trial. It comes from a fictional book, To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm sure everybody here read it when they were in 10th grade, like me. And this 100% does happen. So a quick primer on it, because I'm sure most of you haven't read it since the 10th grade. Tom Robinson, a black man, is put on trial for the rape of a young woman. The backdrop and why this is important is Jim Crow era Alabama. Now, as we go through this trial, Jim Crow era, it was set back in 1935. So as we go through this trial, it becomes very obvious that Robinson did not do what he was accused of because he couldn't possibly have. The girl was beaten up on the right side of her face, indicating a left-handed attacker, and had marks around her neck consistent with 2 hands around the neck choking her. Now, why could Robinson not possibly be able to do this? Well, his left hand had been all but lost in a cotton gin accident, ripping the muscle and leaving it a useless husk, not even able to stay on the Bible as he tries to swear himself in. Now, why is this important to the Rittenhouse case and jury? It revolves around the burden of proof that the prosecution must carry, namely beyond a reasonable doubt. In the Robinson case, the reasonable doubt was as stated. You can't beat someone with your left hand if your left hand is useless. Now, in the Rittenhouse case, the prosecution's witnesses basically sprinkled in... The prosecution made the case for reasonable doubt themselves. The defense probably didn't even need to put up a defense. The prosecution, I don't know what they were thinking. I'm not a lawyer by any means. I'm not one to do legal analysis, but wow. In both cases, the burden of reasonable doubt was met. So in the book, the conviction comes down after a few hours of deliberation, whereas after several days in the Rittenhouse trial, an acquittal can come down, which leads me to my final point. In Mockingbird, the jury was swayed by the outside pressure, namely Jim Crow South racism, whereas in Rittenhouse's case, the jury did not cave to the outside pressure, namely the threat of having their city burn again. So outside the courthouse, protesters shouted from... excuse me, and this is from the Daily Wire. No justice, no peace, and if Kenosha doesn't get it, shut it down, among other slogans. And this commotion could reportedly could be heard from the inside at times. Do you have anything to say on this real quickly, Marcus? I want to, give you a chance to speak.
Thing that I think it was absurd. It took 3 days to come down with this verdict. Number one, I think it wasn't for the outside social media that it wouldn't have been nowhere near 3 days. I believe that without the outside influence.
You're probably right. So
yeah, but I think without the outside influence, I think the jury goes.
Well, I'm about to get right into that. So the juries could hear that from outside when they went home at night. Even though they were instructed not to pay attention to any outside news, they were still at home and in possession of technology that could access the internet. If you don't think they weren't on it at all 18 of them, no. And then there's the fact that they were followed home by a freelancer from MSNBC, who the judge thankfully threw out of the courtroom. But why would MSNBC follow these jurors home? I mean, they're just trying to do their civic duty here. The answer, probably so they can make their life miserable if what happened. But that's conjecture on my point. All of this comes from the side of the political spectrum that calls for and condones riots when they don't get their way. The side that was responsible for the riots that started this whole thing when someone with a arrest warrant against his ex-girlfriend came there with a knife, turned on the police officer as he was trying to get into a car with the kids, and the police shot him, as they should have. So in the book, there's a conversation that Atticus Fitch, the lawyer who represented Tom Robinson, said to his son after the trial, and it said, "You might like to know that there was one fellow who took considerable wearing down. In the beginning, he was raring for an outright acquittal. And then a little bit farther down, if we'd had 2 of that crowd, we'd have had a hung jury. This jury in To Kill a Mockingbird could have been heroes if they had just a little more courage. They could have stood up to the evil pressures that was Jim Crow racism, and it was evil. Now, it might have cost them everything in southern Alabama, but it would have been the right thing to do. And that is why, in the Rittenhouse trial, the fact that the jury put aside the threats of violence, the fact that the mainstream media was trying to follow them home, a sitting congresswoman falsely equating an acquittal to an endorsement of white supremacists shooting at her from behind a hill in Ferguson, which is a whole nother thing. They knew all of that, and they followed the facts to the correct conclusion, and they had the courage to render a just verdict, and that is why they are American heroes. Okay. Whew. Marcus, you got anything?
I completely agree, 100%, because when you got one of the guys saying, legit said on stand, yes, I went at Kyle Rittenhouse with the intent to kill him with a gun raised. He admitted to it. Legit said that was my intent, was to attack him. At that point, game over. Self-defense. He literally admitted.
Why was that guy not put on trial, by the way? I mean, he admitted under oath that he did things that are illegal. But, we're not ready for that.
No, the thing I hate, though, is that the media wants to talk about, Kyle Rittenhouse killed 3 people, yada, 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 but they fail to mention things such as how he was trying to help feed the community by putting out a dumpster fire rolling towards a gas station. So, I mean, they wanted to report on this and that, and the way people have reacted in the media, in those 3 days of deliberation, you got people on Twitter and Facebook talking about, if Kyle Rittenhouse wins, this is our system's failing, yada, 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 all that stuff. And the fact that they had all the outside pressure, and that they saw it. I know you're not supposed to look at that stuff, but whenever it's everywhere, there's no way to avoid it, especially in today's world. I'm sorry, but there's no way you're going to find
unless you sequester them. Unless you sequester them away from everything, you're not going to find it. All right, so that's what we had. That's basically the outside. Never heard story we wanted to put out on that. I think that the actual case is talked to death, but I do believe that those jury men and women are heroes for standing up to that pressure. Now, on to the most sickening thing that I have found. I kind of wish I had a trash can near me. I have a couple of bags that I might use. All right. I'm just going to play this. Marcus, you know how bad this is. So if you want to cover your ears, you can. But this is this. Okay. Fortifying myself for this because. All right.
It's rough.
It's rough. Let me turn the sound back on.
7.
No, how old are you?
7.
You're 4.
No, it's 7.
Are you a boy or a girl?
A girl.
A girl?
Mhm.
Were you born a girl? Were you born a girl? When you were a baby, were you a girl?
Yes.
Are you in a boy's body though?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, tell TikTok bye.
Bye.
Okay. Okay. That's bye. That's hard to watch. That is hard to watch. That is hard to stay clean in my speech after just watching that. So I wanted to make a joke about how bad the makeup is. I'm not gonna lie. I was gonna make a joke about how bad the makeup is. I love irreverent humor, and I wanted to get a little bit of light out of this, but I can't. The violent revulsion just makes me want to puke. I had to watch, like I said, I had to watch this many times in preparation for this show, and honestly, my heart breaks for this little boy. The fact that his mother would do this to him leaves me at a loss for words. The only reason I can even say this right now is because I've already written down, thankfully. But literally after watching that, I had to stop working on my notes for 2 hours because of how awful this was. And that's someone, I don't mind gore and all, but this is... Oh, the fact that his mother would do this to him leaves me at a loss for words, partially from having to swallow the bile that comes to my throat. And partially because I can't believe that a mother would foist a lie as monumental as their kids on this. Just no words. And the mom knows this is a lie. She corrects him on the fact that he's 4 and not 7. I mean, all the lies that she could, of all the lies that she could correct him on. Maybe start with the ones that won't eventually be true. As long as nothing happens to this kid, he will one day be 7. But no, he will never one day be a woman. Nor is he now, nor has he ever been. The 37 trillion cells in his human body, all with the XY sex chromosomes, say you are a male, and that is immutable, regardless of this poor soul is one day lied, if this poor soul is one day lied to and pushed into transition surgery. I need a minute to calm down, so Marcus, I need you to talk for a minute.
I think Ben Shapiro, back a couple years ago, said it best in a debate. When he asked one of the students, I was talking about transgender, and he asked what the age was, and she said her age, and he said, "Well, why ain't you 67?" You know, because I'm not, and it's something that's so less significant. There's something such as gender. You know, your age is not that significant. You know, if you go to the doctor and you're having groin pain, that can differ as to what the problem is between male and female. But it doesn't matter if you go to the doctor, or if you're 20 or 30 or 5 or 40. If you got groin pain, it doesn't matter. You still got the groin pain. So
Yeah.
age is so less significant.
Your so-called sex change is not going to change your male pattern baldness.
No, and if watching that video, I only watched it once. I wouldn't do it more than once. So,
I had to.
but
I probably
if
watched
you
it 15
watch
or 16 times.
if
Oh,
you watching that video, the kid doesn't even look like he wants to be in the video. He's
mm-mm.
trying
He
to
wants. He
play.
wants
He's
to. He
trying
wants
to
to climb on
climb.
the wall, which is a boyish thing to do.
Exactly, it's like it's like the man in the video said. He said he's trying to climb like a boy. I've got boys at the house, and you just see the rubber marks from where they're trying to climb over everything. And he's it's like the mom's like, oh, you're a girl, right? And he's just saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. He doesn't care. He's trying to get his mom out of his face. He doesn't care. He doesn't know what he is. He doesn't care. He just wants to climb. He wants to have fun. But his mom's all in his face, and he's just kind of like, I just whatever I need to say, just let me climb,
Well, that's a
and
perfect segue into my next point, which is I wonder how often and how early his mother and presumably his father, if he has one there, started telling him this lie. I mean, he fights back on the fact that he's 7 instead of 4. He fights that, even though he fights that. But as soon as he is asked if he is a girl, as soon as his mom asked him if he's a girl, no hesitation whatsoever. It's absolutely revolting.
yeah, it is. It really is. I hate to see it, but at the same token, when I watched video earlier, um, whenever she asked his age, it's like he was into it at that point. Like his mom was like, "Hey, how old are you?" And it's like he was interested in it. He wasn't worried about climbing the wall at that point. He was interested in the video. Like, "Oh, I'm 7." He was interested in it. But what you're talking about, the other things besides his age, what the gender, it's like he didn't care if she was there. It's like
Mm-hmm.
he could care less that his mom was asking something about that. He wasn't intrigued. At that point, I think it was just you say yes just because that's what they want to hear. And
Yeah. Hopefully, it's
kids
not as
kids aren't
ingrained as
stupid.
he thinks, as it seems, because that's just.
Ki- Kids aren't stupid. That they
No,
know
kids are very stupid.
that.
Let's get that. Kids are very stupid.
No, yes, but at the same time, they're not as stupid as you think. Either. They know they understand what words mean, and they understand, and they'll learn. Especially if that mother has tried to get the child to be like, "You're a girl, right? Oh, you're a girl, right?" And if she's done that multiple times, then that kid's not stupid to the point where he's going to keep saying no, no, no. I'm a boy. No, I'm a guy. I'm a boy. If his mom's like, "You're a girl. You're a girl," he's not so stupid that he won't just say yes. You know.
Right.
So I doubt
But
that's the
that
first
does
time that
something.
mother
That literally
has ever tried that with that boy.
that literally builds neurological connections in your brain when in your most formative years, when your brain is its most active, and that's why this is so bad. So I've said it before, but as deeply involved as he is, um, and without some serious mental help from a truth-based therapist, not someone who's going to affirm it, and especially this is especially true if his mom pushes him into the surgery. 41% chance across all age groups for transgenders to attempt suicide, and for this young, you can take a coin and flip it, and that's you can take this coin right here. You can take it and you can flip it in the air, and that's the chance he tries to kill himself. I that's there's no way to put that nicely. There's no way to put that nicely. Flip this in the air, just 50% chance that you guess which one it is. If you're wrong, he tries to kill himself. So, maybe we don't push this on kids or anyone. Maybe we don't maybe we don't buy into this lie that you can change your gender regardless of what your biological sex is, or that you can cut some stuff off and rearrange it down there and sew it back up and that you'll be someone of the opposite. No, it's not true. It's not true, and it's killing people. Sorry.
I think the worst,
Actually, I'm not sorry. Go ahead, Marcus.
Video.
Say what?
I think the worst part. I think the worst part for me is that of course, if you're a grown human being and you're a male, but you say I want to be a female, that's bad enough. But I get argument about it being their choice. If they want to be delusional, let them be delusional. You know, they're obviously not a female or a male if they were born another way. But you know, that's the argument. I want to be me. You know, if I want to be me, I'm going to be me. I make my own choices. That's what the argument is in so many cases. This is what I feel like. But that child, that young boy there, does not seem to have been given a chance
Mm-hmm.
to even think about what he is, or think about what it, you know, see what it really is, to think about what he
'Cause you're
what he
four.
is. But he has not been given a choice, and this has been forced down his throat.
Yes, it has been.
So, and some people will use the argument about, oh, well, being straight is forced on your throat every day of your life. No,
No,
being
that's the
straight is
default
a
setting.
natural
That's the correct setting.
instinct. That's a natural instinct. So I mean, but this isn't just like, oh, being. This isn't the mother saying, oh, if you want to be a girl, you can be a girl. That's not this mother saying. You know, that's not the mother teaching a liberal viewpoint of, oh, you can be what you want to be. You can like who you want to like. That's not what this is. This is basically the mother saying, you're a girl, whether you like it or not, because I say so.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're 100% correct.
this isn't a choice.
100%.
And that's the thing that sticks me the most is it already makes me sick to hear people. It makes life hard to the people that are mentally disturbed enough to think that they're another gender than they are.
Mm-hmm.
But to have that forced upon a young child is another story. It's
Flip a
horrible.
coin.
I hate to say it.
You flip a coin, that's their chance they try and kill themselves. That's why I'm so outspoken about this. Anyone wants to come after me, I will fight and die on this hill. Because you see, it's not just this mom. It's all of these people. All of these are people who would gladly let their child go through a surgery that gives them a 50%, and it goes on. So you come at me about this and you will lose. I will fight and die on this hill if I need to. Stop messing with the kids. That's going to be it for tonight, guys. Marcus, I think this was a fantastic episode. Thank you for hanging in with me for the long haul. Right now we're at an hour and 12 minutes. So thank you for hanging in there with me. I think we had a lot of fun on this one. I think we also had a lot of heavy stuff. Just to plug in for the last week's video that I live streamed from the Ben Shapiro thing at FSU. If you want to hear his take on the transgender thing, it's the second student in. And of course it's good. Yeah, if you didn't watch our last video, it's 2 weeks ago. You can watch it on here on Facebook. You can watch it over on the YouTube channel, Canceled Misfits. It has been cut up, so if you want to watch bite-sized pieces, you can watch it over there. If you want to review any of this over the next week, over Thanksgiving, these will be coming out piece by piece over the week, as well as the entire show at one time. Please go like, subscribe over there. Like us over here, leave a comment, leave questions. Maybe I could answer your questions. I would love to do that. I would love that challenge. Whatever you do, go out, have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy it with your friends and family. Eat some good turkey, have some good mashed potatoes, and take a good nap afterwards. Marcus, you got anything as we go?
Yes, I'd like to say thank you all again for joining us. I really enjoy sharing this time with Gray. Again, happy birthday, Gray. Hope you've had a wonderful day. I wish you a great year. And also on YouTube, we may even try to put out some stuff like our warm-ups.
Yeah,
Before
bloopers.
some of the corny stuff we say beforehand, just as a little funny tidbit. So
We do
let us
have
know if
some
it's in the
YouTube only videos and content in the works. So go subscribe over there
I
to
think it's
get
pretty
all
cool.
of us. You can see this
Happy
beautiful face
Thanksgiving.
smiling at you more. All right, guys.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Go out, do something to get canceled in this culture because you're probably doing the right thing if you do. See ya.